Well, howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Happy New Year. I hope all of you had a safe and fun New Year. I went out and visited my niece and nephew. We got invited to their house for New Year's and proceeded to get pretty inebriated. It was a good end of year and welcome to the new year. And something I don't do very often is drink because, as you know, I'm diabetic and it's not a good idea to put a bunch of sugar alcohol into your system. It really raises your blood level. But anyway, I digress. So, needless to say, I think I had about 5 bourbon and ginger ales and proceeded to share my life story with everybody. So, thank you to my niece and nephew so much for hosting us. The food was great, the company was even better, and the whiskey was pretty good too. So there you go. And another special shout out to NC Medic, the subscriber who has now donated 2 servers to Unky Joe's Playhouse, one of the Dell R710s, and then most recently a surprise Christmas gift, the Dell R210 Model 2. Somehow NC Medic is a mind reader or knows my browsing history and knows I've been waiting to pull the trigger on one of those Dells. I just didn't want to pay more than about $200 for one. Well, he saved me the trouble and sent me one. I did end up taking some components out of there, namely the I think it's a 310 SAS controller. Didn't need it. I wanted to use the serial ATA controllers on the motherboard, so I took that SAS controller out. This video is about discussing what I've decided to do with that machine, and I think, as all of you know, I was going to make it from the beginning. I was going to make it a PFSense box, and well, that's what I did. But let me show you the unit now as it is in the rack and discuss some stuff about it. Then we'll come back.
Well, hopefully the light is good enough for you to see this. It's real hard to tell through this little bitty 3-inch LCD screen on these cameras, but whether you can see it or not, I'll zoom in here. There's the Dell R210 Model 2 in the rack. It's sitting on top of I'm sorry, I can't seem to hold the camera right. Sitting on top of my home NAS unit, which is currently running Exponology as a DS918. But there it is, we got it in. And I'm going to tell you in a couple of minutes what it's running. I think you already know what it's running. It's pretty self-explanatory what I wanted to do with that server. And there's the rest of my rack units. You can see some of them are a work in progress. Got some drives out. I got a drive sitting on the floor. We're doing some other testing, but I just wanted you to get an idea of the rack. So there's the IBM, the Dell, and the Dell. Then the home NAS running Exponology DS918 Plus. Then the Dell 210 that NC Medic donated right before Christmas. And then our actual Synology NAS, our PoE switch, our HD home run, our 24-port Unify switches. You can see I am rapidly running out of ports on that Unify. What's in the works is a Unify XG, the one that I had here briefly and did an eval on and then sent on to Morton, is the next switch I want to get for my rack. That way I can integrate 10 gig networking into my network and keep it all unified. So right now I've only got the Synology NAS on, the switch, the 2 switches, the HD home run, the Dell R210, my home NAS unit, and one of those Dell R710 servers. And right now we're consuming, let's see, well, you can see it about 427 watts running full bore. Between 420 and 430 watts, we'll say. So, not using a whole lot of power. I'm going to fire up the entire rack here and give you an idea of how much power that's using total. So we'll come back to that in just a second. All right, so everything is on now, both Dells and the IBM. In addition to my home NAS unit running Exponology, the Dell R210, the Synology NAS, and all the appropriate or accompanying hardware. And you can see my UPS right now is maxed out. It's at the full load. So let's see how many, and keep in mind, it's about 45 degrees outside. I have no supplemental heating in here. We don't even have a forced air furnace in this home anymore. Just didn't see fit replacing it anyway. So this room is at 75 just with all this equipment running, and all the servers are loaded. The IBM and the Dell are loaded at 100%, and I'm pulling close to 1,000 watts. Well, let's just be honest, it's 900 watts. As you can see here, 906 to be exact. So I run these, this additional Dell and IBM server when it's cold outside, and they actually heat up my office pretty well on cold days, cold, wet, rainy days. So I don't run them all the time. The Dell that's in the middle, of course, runs all the time. So, and have I told you yet what we did with this Dell R210 Model 2? That's right. It's a PFSense server, and it's running great. And I'm going to tell you all about it here in just a minute.
Now, I know some of you are probably thinking that that server is overkill for PFSense, but not really. Even though I normally only get maybe at most a couple of Netflix connections going out to the internet, I do run my business on this internet connection, and I want, if I'm going to be selling or if I'm going to be supporting this firewall with my clients, I need to know how to use it. And one of the big things with my clients is they trust but verify. It's a lot easier just to leave the internet wide open, monitor people's behavior and correct people's behavior, than it is to try to block certain sites on the internet. So, we monitor their firewalls for them. So reporting is a big feature for me, and PFSense has really good reporting in it. It's also been out there a while. It's stable, it's secure, it's good on hardware, etc. There's a lot of add-in software you can add to it. It's really a very functional, makes a very functional router and firewall. But you need, these days, not to skimp on the specs for it, because as internet connections get faster, it means that you need more processing to process those packets. And that's why I went with this Dell R210. That and the fact that it gives me the AES encryption, which is going to be required moving forward with PFSense. So I'm just trying to plan ahead. And, the thing, when it's running, only pulls about 25 watts of power. It's very power efficient. I had a USG in there, but I want to use PFSense because, again, it's something offered to my clients, and I need to be able to eat my own dog food, so to speak. Now, my old PFSense box was running on that i3 with that Gigabyte H97N wireless motherboard. It had 8 gig of RAM, and I had an Intel quad-port PCI Express NIC card in there. And that was fine, but I ended up using that board for my Exponology NAS, so I decided to put the Dell to that use. Now, the Dell has a Xeon quad-core processor in there, and I believe it's quad-core, 4 gig of RAM, which is fine, and has the onboard Broadcom NIC cards. So I decided just to use the hardware that was built into the Dell. I installed PFSense onto that box. I had no trouble whatsoever getting PFSense installed. I did have trouble with putting Untangle on there. It would not detect my hard disk controller, but I used PFSense, and it installed and detected everything just fine, including my Broadcom NICs. And I'm very happy with the hardware decision I made on that Dell R210. So I know a lot of people they say, in PFSense you should only have Intel NIC cards, and that could be true, but I didn't want to have to add any add-on cards to this unit, to this machine. I want to use the onboard stuff. So I went with the Broadcom NICs, and let's just do a speed test while I'm talking here. And keep in mind, I have traffic shaping on, quality of service on that firewall. And but my speed here is 100 by 100, so I should be getting at least that. And you can see, and I haven't stopped any other activities from occurring on the internet, so it could be my spouse is watching Netflix, I don't know, but I just wanted you to see the speed results going through the new PFSense. And it gets close to 100 megabit on upload speed, but that's okay. As you can see, it finally hit 100. So my internet speeds are really good. The PFSense router is working well. I'm not worried about those Broadcom NICs being a problem moving forward, but time will tell. It could be something rears its ugly head later. So like I was saying, all I did was simply install the current version of PFSense onto that Dell. Then I went to my old PFSense box and did a backup, including the applications. Now, it was trivial. All I had to do was go on my new PFSense box and set the IPs properly, log in, and then I went out and restored a backup. Now, when I restored the backup, it noticed that I no longer had those 4 Intel network adapters in there. And it noticed that I instead had the Broadcom, and it allowed me to easily map the old interfaces to the new ones. That way all the aliasing and the name and everything was set properly. I did that. I rebooted the firewall. Everything came back up. I did have to create one of my VLANs, VLAN 20, from scratch. I just found it was easier to do it than to try to map it while it was restoring from a backup. And that could have just been a mistake on my part. But once I did that, then I booted into PFSense. And then, after I booted into PFSense, there's only one additional app that I run on PFSense, and that is NTOPNG. So I reinstalled NTOP, and once I got it installed and started the service, it kept all of my settings from my old firewall configuration. So it was trivial, and that's another thing I like about PFSense is you can make a baseline configuration, then you can take it and pretty much use it as a template moving forward, creating new firewalls that way. And then all you have to do is go in and do some minor housekeeping, cleaning up names and aliases, that kind of thing. So thank you, PFSense. You made it very simple to do a backup and restore. So there you go. Here's the setup screen, or the dashboard screen on PFSense. You can see I'm running 2.4.4 release P1. I just updated that the other day. It's an Intel Xeon CPU E3 1240 version 2. It has 8 CPUs. It's counting all the cores, so 4 cores plus 2 hardware threads, and it supports AES-NI CPU crypto, and it is turned on. And then you can see the additional hardware crypto it supports. So yeah, and yeah, you're right. This machine probably is overkill for a firewall, but it doesn't use a lot of power. It's a very fast and efficient server. And as I start learning more about PFSense and adding more apps to it, you notice I don't have any intrusion prevention. I don't have any virus running on it. The only thing I actually have running on this is NTOP right here, NTOPNG. I went ahead and created some more VLANs. I created one for my lab network and one for my Internet of Things lab, LAN. We're going to be doing some videos on creating on how to create VLANs within your home network to kind of isolate things. So that's another reason I wanted to make sure PFSense was up and running. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a good firewall without NTOP PNG. And just log in to show you it's working. And again, all of the information, all the setup information came over easily. This is the view I like, which is the the host view. That will tell you who has the most throughput at the moment, and then it gives you your total bytes. But then you can drill down into the devices and see what they are. And you'll notice one thing I don't understand about PFSense is the way it does DNS, because on some of these it's getting the correct DNS name, on some of these it's not. I mean my local internal IPs. So I'll have to look into that. But I just wanted to show you that NTOP was actually running. So as you can see from my circumstance, it's that Dell R210 is certainly not overkill. And look, all these NUCs that they make, the quad port, the NUCs with a quad port, the NUCs with 2 ports, they're all over Amazon and all over eBay, but they're $300 to $400 sometimes, or $250 even. That Dell R210, if you can get it online for a couple of $100, man, I mean, it's more powerful than any of those NUCs. Well, other than an i7 one, but it's more powerful than those NUCs and for what you need it for. And usually you can get them with 4 or 8 gig of RAM for that price for a couple $100. Slap a hard drive in there and you're ready to go. And they don't use that much power. I think at full bore that thing was pulling about 60 watts. But here at idle it runs about 25 to 30 watts. So that's plenty acceptable to me. So say what you will. But I think it's a good fit for, well, at least for Unky Joe's Playhouse. And I'm not the only one. There's a ton of videos out there on a Dell 210, R210 Model 2. And I say the Model 2 because the Model 1 is a lot noisier than this thing is. This thing is whisper quiet compared to that the initial R210. So alternatives, well, there's Untangle, there's PFSense, or there's a couple others out there. But, Tom over at Lawrence Systems turned me on to PFSense, and once I got to know it and learn how to use it, it became more intuitive. I am going to do a video on Untangle and the home. I have an account for that. I have a license, so I will be doing one of those. I think I'm going to do that virtually just so I can get it up and running and get familiar with it and play with it a little bit and then do a video on it. But you're probably also wondering why I don't use that. You can see it right behind me on the desk. That's the Unify USG gateway. Now, why don't I use that? Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's going to be going to my business partner's house for his to be his gateway onto the internet. Once we finish cabling it, we've just been tied up. And the other thing is it doesn't have the kind of reporting I need. Now, I don't need that here in my home, the reporting so much, but in my business I do. And since I'm going to be using PFSense for my clients, I need to, as they say, eat your own dog food so that I know how to get the reports out of it that I need, etc. Now, it's taken me years to find a firewall software that I was on Carrio Control, for years, for probably the last 10, 11 years. It was a great firewall, but Carrio sold out to GFI. GFI changed their partner agreement, and they really weren't supporting that firewall as well. They tried to be a UTM instead of just a firewall, and we really didn't need the UTM capabilities of a firewall. We just needed a good rock solid, firewall router. And PFSense fit the bill, so that's why I moved over to it. But, hey, to each their own. Whatever firewall suits your needs, If you're a home user, I would seriously look at Untangle. I ran it here for a while, about last year, and my license did renew. It's $50 a year, and it's unlimited. You get all the features with the exception of a couple of advanced functions on their regular corporate firewall, but I think you'd like it. It's got a lot of pretty bells and whistles. And like I say, we'll be doing a video on it so you can see what it's like up close and personal and working. Now, one of my other goals for 2019 is to get this little gem right here. So, this is the part of the video where I beg. Well, actually, I'm not going to beg. If you are so inclined to donate, we take PayPal and we take Patreon. And any donations I get for the next month or two, well, let's just put it this way. Any more donations I get via those two methods, PayPal and Patreon, is going to go toward the Ubiquiti 16XG fund to get me this 10 gig switch in here. And I'm going to do like I did with the Synology. Once I meet half of the cost through donations, then I'm going to put up the other half of the money to buy this. So once we get up to $300 in donations, then I will apply my $300 and get this switch, because I am going to need it to do some videos moving forward. I have a temporary way to get around having to have this switch right now, but ultimately this is the switch I want to get. I want to try to keep everything in my stack Unify. I know I could get the Edge switch, but I don't believe they have one that has all these SFP Plus ports on it. That's what I'm looking for, because I do have an investment in SFP Plus connectors and transceivers, and then in addition to that, it gives me 4 additional ports. So if you are inclined to donate, This is what that is going to be going toward, and just giving us a way to do even more videos and do some more lab experiments here for YouTube. Well, there you go, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for this video. We hope you found it entertaining and informative. Please give us a thumbs up down below. Leave your comments in the comments section. I love hearing from subscribers. We're getting close to that 5,000 sub mark. We didn't make it by the end of 2018, but it's no big deal. It's great. It's great. I'd love to get 5,000 subs, so share the videos with anybody who might be interested in them and get the word out there. Come give us a chance here at Uncle Joe's Playhouse and see if we can't get some more subscribers. Donate if you're so inclined. Remember, all the donations until we get to 300 are going to go toward that Switch fund. So if you want your donation to go towards something else, that's fine. Just leave me a note when you donate, either via PayPal or Patreon, and I'll make sure that money gets distributed where you guys want it to go. But for the most part, we're going to get that Switch once we get the funds together. Thanks again for watching, and please don't forget that we'll see you on the other side.